Militants attacked a crowded mosque in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula today. The death toll is in the hundreds.
President Trump reacted strongly on Twitter, writing in part, quote, "We have to get tougher and smarter than ever before, and we will. Need the wall, need the ban. God bless the people of Egypt."
Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was one of Donald Trump's earlier political supporters, but he could be breaking with the president as his legal trouble deepens.
There's various reasons why you would draw from this type of agreement. It doesn't mean that you're going to cooperate.
The president planning some major meetings on the Hill. The White House looks at potential showdowns over tax reform.
We've already seen signs that McConnell realizes how desperate the situation is. If the donor class is saying, we're cutting you off unless you get something done, they're in even bigger trouble.
So last year, the president was the man of the year. This year, they call him and say, he'll probably be, and the president tweets out, as you said, Griff, I don't do probably.
Time magazine does this all the time, and the difference is this president calls out the media when they're dishonest, and no one's ever done it before him, and that's why the American people love him.
Charlie XCX, never heard of him, but I like the song.
Boom clap.
It's true.
And it's a her.
Of them.
It is boom clap because we have Lisa Booth with us.
We do have
I will
Lisa.
boom clap for
Hey
that.
guys, thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
We love having
morning.
you here. It's the Saturday after the Thursday that is Thanksgiving. It's kind of like no man's land. Like kind of some people worked yesterday. Now we're into the weekend. It's a long weekend.
We're working.
We hope you're just laying in bed under the covers, flipping on the TV and watching us.
I'll tell you who is working. The president. President Trump working, making phone calls to Egypt where there was a terror attack, the worst in Egypt's history, tweeting about something we're going to talk about, which are magazine covers, but also tweeting about tax reform. You know, I hope the Republicans stuffed themselves, got some rest, and maybe even went shopping and got something, because when they come back, they're going to have to do the nation's business.
Because that's what lawmakers need more of at this point, is more vacation. They don't take any vacation. It seems like all they do is take vacation. They have a few days left before the end of the year.
12.
As you mentioned, 12 days on the legislative calendar to get something done. Tax reform has not just policy consequences for our country and our economy, but very real political consequences for Republicans. We had Corey Lewandowski, who's the chief strategist in America First Policies and a former campaign manager for President Trump. We had him on the program earlier. He talked about the stakes of the next month and a half on Capitol Hill as it pertains to Republicans. Take a listen.
I think it's going to be very difficult if they don't get this bill done for those Republicans to go back to their districts in the election year next year and say, look what we've accomplished, because they really haven't accomplished anything. What the president's been able to do through executive orders and through deregulation is to get the economy moving again, to make sure those businesses know that there is a future for them, that they're going to get a tax cut. But now we're relying on Congress to get that done. And if they don't get that done, and we've got a very short window, we've got about a dozen days left in the congressional calendar, then there will be accountability at the ballot box, and those Republicans in the House and the Senate will be held accountable.
Okay, so here's where we are. The president holding a meeting with the big four, the leaders of the House and the Senate, and he even said he's going to go to a policy lunch for the Senate, which is like, okay, guys, you aren't going to get it done. Well, I'm just going to sit here while you have lunch and you get my tax bill passed. What do you make of this?
Well, and they're also trying to come up with a deal to avoid a government shutdown as well on funding the government. But yeah, tax reform's been a huge issue for Republicans. The House got it done. But there's a lot of concerns that the Senate are going to fail, just like they did with Obamacare, not being able to get that done. And what's at stake here, as Corey laid out, is really the midterm elections and the concern that Republicans are not going to feel motivated. Republican voters are not going to feel motivated to get out into the polls. And we've had Senators Mike Lee, Senator Lindsey Graham, all express concern that Republicans are essentially dead electorally and politically if they don't get tax reform
Lisa,
done.
You've been involved in Republican politics. How does the president navigate these constituencies of your never-Trumpers and your more strident conservatives to get to those 50 votes, which he needs? I mean, what's the strategy at this moment?
Well, I think the hope is that there's that political pressure of every Republican looking at the Senate map, looking at and the House map, looking at 2018, realizing the fact that they've made all these promises to Republican voters and concern that heading into the midterm elections, that voters are just not going to feel motivated to turn out. We've seen the Democratic Party is energized. We've seen that in the marches, the protests. We saw that in the Virginia gubernatorial race. So the concern is that they're going to be more motivated than Republican voters.
If we don't get it done, we all hang.
With their new blood,
Exactly.
like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
That's right. Well,
With the new blood, yeah.
This president involved in policy, and of course the left likes to talk about how you can't do policy and tweet at the same time. Which
President Tweet?
I did not call. I did call him President Tweet in previous hours. No longer. It is President Trump. Of course, it was a slip of the tongue. But he was tweeting yesterday about Time Magazine, because you'll remember last year he was Time's Person of the Year. He has some insight about the process this year. President Trump tweeting this yesterday. He said, Time Magazine called him to say that I was probably going to be named Man or Person of the Year, like last year, but I would have to agree to an interview and a major photo shoot. And I said, probably is no good, and took a pass. Thanks anyway. And that brought a quick rebuttal from Time Magazine. Of course, these are some video of the photo shoot last year when he was named Time Man of the Year. Time tweeted this back at the president. They said, the president is incorrect about how we choose Person of the Year. Time does not comment on our choice until publication, which is December 6th. Griff, I mean, but it just, he's pulling back the curtain. Of course they talk to people that could be the Person of the Year because they need the photo shoot, they need the interview.
He's got to hold an eagle. The president is trying to pass the most historic tax reform in more than 3 decades to bring tax relief for all Americans. He's dealing with a exploding ISIS problem in Egypt, and they said, we may take up your entire day and make you play with an eagle. I don't know if we have that video.
Well, that was from the past one. Yeah, of course.
Last year,
whatever they would ask.
And these things, you know, you've seen these things. I got to tell you, I've been on photo shoots. When I worked with Oliver North, he would be featured on magazines. They take hours. I mean, there's a lot of people, and it is time-consuming. So the president has an actual. There's the eagle there. I mean, how long do you think he had to play with the bird? And he said, "Look, I'm not playing with any birds. I'm not going to sit around. You either want or you don't. I'm busy." And he's got the mute.
But we asked you what you think, and that's what we really want to hear. Joyce on Facebook said, if I were the POTUS, I would not give them the time of day.
Oh, nice play on words.
Steve said this was a brilliant. Yeah. Steve said this was a brilliant move on Trump's part. Who can be on the cover now? Second best, the Donald strikes again. And Marianne said, those of us who care about our country do not care what Time Magazine thinks.
Again, a larger cultural critique from this president and saying, you know, I'm going to let you all underneath the hood of how these things really, really happen. And what Time Magazine doesn't want you to know is there's stuff underneath the hood. And the reality is there's a process that goes into these things. He was asked and considered, rightfully so, 1 year into his presidency, who else is more influential in the world than this president, driving conversations across the spectrum? He said preemptively, they asked me, I said, no, thanks. And Time says, Time denies it? Why doesn't Time just come out and say...
Time's in a predicament, so I want you to email us.
He tells the truth. They go, no, we don't do that. Because they get called out and they can't handle it. They've never been called out before.
But see, you're attacking them. So I'm going to ask our viewers to take a vote. And I'm going to include you, Lisa. Email us at friends@foxnews.com. Do you want Pete or Lisa or Pete and Lisa on the cover of Time Magazine? Time's out of the cover. They don't have the president.
I mean, I love Lisa, but neither is also an option. Okay, so...
You think you should leave it?
No, that's not an option. Just A or B.
Maybe they should put a pie on the cover.
Speaking of pie, there's also Piegate, if you guys were watching earlier. So the press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, had tweeted out a picture. That was not the pie.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
She tweeted out, I don't cook much these days, but managed this chocolate pecan pie for Thanksgiving at the family farm. To which April Ryan, who is a White House correspondent, tweeted, show it to us on the table.
Okay, so a dare, saying, we don't believe you made it.
Yeah, like prove it, put up, put up.
It didn't stop there.
It didn't stop there because the press secretary responded, don't worry, at April D. Ryan, because I'm nice. I'll bake one for you next week. Hashtag real pie, hashtag fake news, winky face. You can't forget that.
I didn't know that was a winky face.
Yeah, it's a winky face.
And they weren't done.
Nope, they're not done. So April Ryan tweeted back again. So this exchange continues. Okay, I want to watch you bake it and put it on the table. But forgive, I won't eat it. Remember, you guys don't like the press. So very interesting exchange there. And what's ridiculous, too, well, first of all, if I had a pie, I probably would have purchased it. So I wouldn't have liked that response because I wouldn't have wanted to have to post the video of me making it. But I believe the Sarah Huckabee Sanders actually did make this pie. It looks delicious. I wish you would share it with us.
Why are we talking?
I would love to eat it.
Why are we
I know,
talking about?
it's
She's a
insane.
member of the White House press corps, and I
Yes.
don't want to belittle my colleagues because at the end of the day, we are the media trying to hold our leaders, our government accountable.
You are, Griff.
And
She's trying to hold Republicans accountable.
Here's the thing,
You
though.
are, Griff. You play the middle ground. She's trying to hold Republicans accountable. She lobbed softballs at Barack Obama for 8 years. Now she's holding Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Trump accountable. She is an organ of the Democratic Party. You won't say it. You're a nice guy. I will.
But with all the stuff going on in the world, it's like, do you really have time to go back and forth on this? I mean, it's just,
Well,
and
there's a lot
she
of
was just
things going on.
celebrating Thanksgiving with her family. Like, leave it alone.
And there is a lot going on. Actually, we got to give you some headlines here. So let me turn now to some headlines breaking overnight. A fugitive teen wanted in connection with the death of his grandmother is caught trying to cross the Canadian border. 15-year-old Logan Mott was reported missing with his grandmother, Christina French, earlier this week. Police finding French's body buried in the backyard of her son's Florida home, where Mott also lives. Authorities say the home was ransacked with several guns missing. Police plan to interview Mott to find out what happened.
An intense standoff between guards and prisoners ending in injuries overnight. 2 inmates taking a pair of officers hostage at a maximum security unit in Tucker, Arkansas, about 30 miles southeast of Little Rock. Staff injuries are described as minor, while no update is being provided on the inmates. It's the latest in a string of several violent incidents inside Arkansas prisons, including at least 2 others at this facility.
And President Trump naming White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney as also the acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Only problem with that, his announcement came just hours after the outgoing director of that bureau, Richard Cordray, an Obama appointee, named a different successor of his own. This sets up a big fight heading into next week with the outgoing Obama appointee claims he has the authority to name his own replacement, and the White House saying, no thanks. Well, we'll see what happens next. It's a big department, Griff. You know, this is the one created by Obama, championed by Elizabeth Warren. We'll have to wait and see who actually ends up running it. Another one for the courts.
Well, I'd be willing to take a wager on who's going to win this one.
I think so, too.
And I love that Mick Mulvaney is doing a good job, so he simply got 2 jobs.
That's right.
And President Trump spending some time on the links with PGA stars Tiger Woods and Dustin Johnson, the commander-in-chief inviting the golf pros to Trump National Club in Jupiter, Florida. During his working vacation in the Sunshine State, fans and golf club members catching a glimpse of the trio. No word on who won the round. Dustin Johnson, the #1 golfer in the world. That's pretty impressive.
They asked me, but I just didn't have time. So, yeah. Well, those are headlines this morning, including me being invited.
Yeah, the
but
president
I was just too
has
busy.
Tiger Woods and Dustin Johnson, but we have you.
I know. I was like, I've got a lot going on. So sorry.
Thanks for being here. All right, President Trump talking tough on terror after hundreds are killed in a terror attack in Egypt. So how do we discredit the ISIS ideology? They took credit for it. Dr. Sebastian Gorka is on deck.
And Democrats say they're looking for fresh blood in 2020. So who are they talking to? This man, 76-year-old young Bernie Sanders. Welcome back. President Trump talking tough on terror after a horrific attack on an Egyptian mosque, hundreds killed by militants while worshiping.
And the president tweeted in response, the world cannot tolerate terrorism. We must defeat them militarily and discredit the extremist ideology that forms the basis of their existence.
President Trump also renewing his calls for a wall and a travel ban. So how can we defeat the terror threat? Here with insight is Fox News national security strategist and former deputy assistant to the president and author of the book, Defeating Jihad, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Doctor, thanks for being here. You've been in the White House, been inside this decision-making cycle. So you've got an attack on a mosque inside Egypt. You've got al-Sisi, who's more of a strongman who wants to be part of the fight against radicals. How do we enable, getting at both the ideology but also these Islamists where they are?
Well, Pete, the president has it absolutely right. There's 2 parts to this war. Number 1 is the kinetic part of it, the part that you're familiar with, the application of military force on target. In the last 10 months, the president has unleashed our military, and you see what the results are. You see Mosul liberated, Raqqa liberated, the caliphate no longer exists as a physical entity. Now comes the harder part. The harder part is to destroy the ideology. Just as we defeated fascism, just as we defeated communism, we have to take down the attractiveness of the concept of jihad. And the way we do that is we support wholeheartedly people like President Sisi, people like King Abdullah of Jordan, to have their version of Islam become the real version that is dominant in the world today. They're the people on the front line. Look at the numbers. It's not just this mosque attack, it's all over the region. Their version of Islam, in which they wish to be friends with us, has to be the dominant one. So really, it's a counter-propaganda campaign with our Muslim partners on the front line.
Are we doing enough on that front to fight the propaganda and fight the radical ideology?
We're not yet. No, as I wrote in my book, we have to go back to the model we had in the 1980s under President Reagan. We had something called the Active Measures Working Group, functioning out of the interagency, that went to deliberately target the propaganda of the Soviet Union. We need that same kind of White House-driven counter-propaganda push. But these tweets by the president tell you he knows what we need, but we have to build it now and build it with our Muslim partners. It'll take time, but it's absolutely essential, Lisa.
Dr. Gorka, talking about building things and tweeting, the president tweeted on building the wall. Here's what he had to say. We have to get tougher and smarter than ever before, and we will need the wall, need the ban. God bless the people of Egypt. Tying all of this together in terms of his concerns on all security fronts, what say you?
He's absolutely right, Griff. Look at what we've seen happen in Europe already. When you destroy the physical bases of these organizations like Al-Qaeda, like ISIS, you never kill everybody. Some of them escape. And some ISIS members have actually made their way to Europe. We know one of the Brussels attackers was on a false Syrian passport. He'd acquired asylum or refugee status before he executed the attack. We need to stop that happening here in America. So the wall is essential. The immigration stop, extreme vetting, these are all absolutely crucial to our security. And the president knows that because he takes his responsibility to protect all Americans very, very seriously.
Yeah, but of course his critics call him an Islamophobe, but you can both hold the idea that God bless the people of Egypt and also want to ban at the same time to secure your own country.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I mean, they know it better than anybody else.
Yeah.
So they know how their community in Egypt has been infiltrated by ISIS fighters. It's called Bait al-Maqdisi, is the ISIS franchise in the Sinai. And they're doing exactly to that country what they wish to do to us and what they've done to Europe. So, yes, you can be a friend to Muslims who are on our side whilst wishing to keep extremists out of America.
Thank you, Dr. Gorka. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
And it's an amazing story of survival. Our next guest narrowly escaped 3 separate terror attacks: Boston, Paris, and Brussels. That's coming up. Welcome back. Some quick headlines. Roy Moore is expected to make his first public appearance in nearly 2 weeks. His campaign telling Fox News the Alabama GOP Senate candidate will speak at a rally in Fort Payne, Alabama on Monday night. Moore has been facing accusations of sexual misconduct by nearly 10 women. The special election is December 12th. And Capitol Police are now investigating whether a nude photo of Congressman Joe Barton posted online is a crime. The Texas Republican claiming he may be a victim of a former lover who threatened to share the picture after he broke off the affair. Pete, Lisa?
A 19-year-old Mason Wells was at the Boston Marathon to cheer on his mother. He witnessed the chaos unfolding when 2 bombs were detonated near the finish line.
Then 2 years later, he was in France doing missionary work when a series of terror attacks killed 130 people in Paris, the city where he had been working just days before.
But last year, Mason's luck ran out, if you want to call it that. He was at the Brussels airport when 2 suicide bombers blew up that terminal, and he barely made it out alive. Mason spoke with us on Fox and Friends from his hospital bed just days after the attack. Listen.
Everything that I've lived up until this point has fortified my personal faith that God is there. I know that I felt his love several times, and I know that if I can feel his love sitting on a sidewalk next to a destroyed airport, that God, he'll talk to his other children too. And I know that he does, listen to the prayers, and that the prayers that the people are doing right now, they make a difference because I felt them.
And it's been more than a year since that interview. Mason Wells is here with us today to share more about how his faith has carried him through these tragedies. He writes about it in his new book called Left Standing. Mason, thanks so much for being with us. Your book's called Left Standing. Obviously, you have been through so much and all these critical moments of your life. If for viewers to know, what's the most important aspect of your book that you would want viewers to know about?
Well, a big thing that I hope people take out of this is that hope is the antidote to adversity. We all face challenges in life. We all face adversity, hard financial times, illness, losing a loved one. And it's during those times that I hope people realize that their choices will affect what they become. We always have kind of two roads in front of us to embrace. One is this road of bitterness, and I think the other is a road of hope. And I hope that the book encourages people to embrace hope.
And Mason, you've chosen not just a road of hope, but a road of action. Folks should know that you are a freshman at the U.S. Naval Academy, so you've decided to commit your career, at least in the interim, to our United States government, the United States Navy. What was it about these three? Was that something you were planning to do anyway? Did these three attacks motivate you to serve?
Yeah, well, I always had the aspiration to attend the Naval Academy ever since I was young. I wouldn't say these attacks changed my reasons for wanting to join, but it definitely made me more aware of good and evil in this world. There's a definite good, there's a definite evil. The people that commit these horrible acts that kill innocent people, they're evil, and we need to stand up to that. And obviously, I'm joining the military, so that kind of says what I think about it. But on an individual basis, I think just by being decent people, by being good people, by taking the time to be patient with people that are different from us, I think that goes a long way to making this world a better place.
And Mason, you talk about how your faith really helps shape you and guide you through these tough moments in your life, and also the healing process. And part of that, you actually penned a letter to the terrorists. And in part, you said, despite my harsh feelings about your acts, I have forgiven both of you. I've chosen not to allow hate to overtake my heart for either of you. I hope that one day we can meet so that you can know that good has indeed come in the wake of your evil acts. Can you just tell our viewers about what motivated that forgiveness? I assume faith was a large part of that. Was it difficult to forgive?
It was something that happened, I would say, fairly quickly, but getting past, I think, some of that anxiety, getting past my frustrations in the recovery process, that's something that's taken a lot longer. Ultimately, my faith has always, reassured me that God has a plan for me and that he has a plan for every single one of his children. And that definitely went a long way in helping me get to where I am now.
So in a personal sense, you've chosen to forgive, which is a part of moving past and getting past. But you've also joined the military committed to killing these guys where they are or wherever they live. So you can have both forgiveness for an individual act, but also a clear sense, as you said, of good and evil, that there is justice to be had for these type of acts.
And, I didn't join the military to kill people. I think, the military is a force in the world. Yeah, to defend it if I have to. I won't hesitate to defend my country. Just because I forgave these people doesn't mean it makes what they did permissible. And I think that's something we have to realize is we can get past this bitterness and we can get past the anger involved in this, but we can also stand up to it at the same time. It's not one or the other. I think the two go hand in hand.
Absolutely. When did you get the idea to write a book about this, and where does it, not a kid, I shouldn't call you a kid, where does a guy of your age who's going to the Naval Academy find the time to write a book?
And I assume that was an emotional process as well.
Sure, it was. And, in a way, it was almost therapeutic, right? Being able to take everything that I've been thinking over the past 18 months and put it down on paper. It wasn't a decision I took lightly. I didn't want to do this when I was first injured. It was, some of my co-authors like Tyler Beddoes and Billy Hallowell that convinced me that the story could help people. And I figured if it could help people, that I had a responsibility to share that.
The book is called Left Standing. Mason, when do you have to be back at the Naval Academy?
In about 2 days.
Standing in formation,
yes.
Right? At 6 in the morning.
Yes.
That's right. When you're a freshman at the Naval Academy, life is not easy. So we appreciate you getting a little bit of time.
And there's the cover there. Yeah, thank you so much, Mason. We're so glad to see you healthy and doing some great things in life. Well, the left.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mason. The left is searching for a new hero to lead them to victory in 2020. And they may have found their man. Ready to feel the burn again?
And Rick Reichmuth is about to unveil the last umbrella you will ever own, that you will ever need. It can handle winds over 50 miles per hour. The big debut is next. Rick will be here. Look at that. It's withholding. It's not giving in. My umbrella would have given in by now.
Yeah, totally. Knowing my luck.
Look at that. Look at that.
It's a wedding photo. I noticed, I recognize one face in that picture, second to the left.
Well,
our own
This
Lisa Booth.
is a topic I don't know anything about. But
well, let me just set this up, because I have the privilege of knowing
There's my
Lisa
mom.
in D.C. Oh, look, you're with your mom, who I bet is proud, because you're joining us for the first time.
I
But
am.
I know you from D.C.
I know. We've got
But now America's learning. Who's this?
a little slugger when I was playing.
That's a little Lisa?
I was playing
How old are you in
softball
that
when
photo?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Probably like 6 or something.
Yeah.
There I'm surfing.
surfer!
Yeah, I went surfing out in LA not too long ago. I grew up with 3 brothers, obviously, as a photo, so I've always liked sports. I like to get out there and get active. There's my little puppy, Bella. I'm pretty much obsessed with her. She turns 1 in next month, so...
Wait, how are you in the lineup of brothers? Are
So
they
I'm
older,
the second,
younger?
yeah,
Second.
which probably
Okay.
makes a lot of sense. So I have an older brother.
Got it.
I have 2 younger brothers. I'm very, very close to my family. I got to spend Thanksgiving with them. And also, I can say this now because it's already out there, but my sister-in-law, who I'm very close with, whose wedding we were at, as you guys saw in the photo, they're having a baby, my older brother and my sister-in-law. Yeah, I got permission.
Fox News alert right
I cleared it with them for me to say this, but I am so excited. My parents are super excited.
That's the whole fam right there.
Yeah, that's the whole. It was actually hilarious because after we found out, we went to this store called Jack and Jill, and I was taking all these photos of my parents because they were like crazy looking at the baby clothes.
Yeah.
So I'm taking all these paparazzi photos, texting them to my brother and my sister-in-law. Because it was hilarious. They were just like unhinged, looking at everything in the store. Yeah, first grandbaby, so they're super excited.
First time hosting now.
First time hosting a show.
Fox
Yeah.
Are you Fox and Friends?
Fox
You've
and
hosted
Friends,
a lot
yeah.
of
I've
other
done
things
a
that we
bunch
see
of
you on the
different.
Fox.
Yeah, I'm a.
But how's it going so far?
Well, you tell me.
Actually, email us.
No,
Don't email us.
that could go very poorly.
You know, Griff,
I'm having a blast.
You're having a great. You usually have a welcome binder that I give to new hosts. He got a welcome binder. You do not have a. I don't know how she's doing it without the welcome binder.
That's because I stole it.
You did. You took
I took
it
it
from
home
her?
with me. Yeah.
We'll get it to you tomorrow. It's a welcome binder. It helps all our new hosts learn how to host. But you seem to not need it. You're not an amateur.
Well,
I'm an amateur. I needed a welcome binder.
I didn't get it. It was
She's a pro, and as a pro, let's give you some headlines.
All right. So now
Welcome,
moving
Lisa.
on to our headlines. More interesting things than Lisa Booth. New court filings revealing that the research firm behind that anti-Trump dossier paid journalists potentially for positive coverage. The House Intelligence Committee finding that Fusion GPS hired journalists who either reported on or were quoted in stories about the document. The assertion made as part of a bid to force the firm to turn over additional bank records. And a new legal battle now brewing in Seattle. A judge ruling against the city's controversial tax on the wealthy, calling it illegal. The judge saying city officials overstepped their authority by imposing the tax because state law prohibits tax on net income. But the city isn't backing down, vowing to appeal, setting the stage for a Washington State Supreme Court showdown. And journalist Ronan Farrow calling out his bosses at NBC News again over his Harvey Weinstein expose. Farrow posting this picture of himself interviewing Weinstein accuser Rose McGowan back in January. He writes, thankful for the women and men who have come forward with painful stories and who helped to chip away at a culture of science. NBC reportedly refused to run his bombshell story that would have outed Harvey Weinstein as a sexual predator months earlier. The political left is still searching for someone to lead the 2020 presidential race. The Democratic people have now spoken. The Hill surveying a dozen party leaders, finding that 76-year-old Bernie Sanders is the leading candidate to face off against President Trump. Former VP Joe Biden, Senators Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Sherrod Brown, as well as former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, are rounding out the top 6. And those are your headlines. Pete?
Smooth.
All right, well, he is our... I was just fascinated by this umbrella in my hand. You're going to be, too. He's our weatherman here at Fox, but he has created a weatherman you can take everywhere with you. Here to tell us about the last umbrella you will ever own, chief meteorologist and founder of the Weatherman, Rick Reichmuth. I was just admiring the smooth technology of this umbrella, Rick.
Thank you.
So, this is a company you have founded and started to make the world's best umbrella.
So about 5 years ago, I was standing in front of a rack of umbrellas at a store, and I thought, most of these are bad. Like, my experience is the throwaway single-use umbrella.
Yep.
But I thought, there's probably a good one out there, but we don't know what it is. And I thought, somebody just tell me what the good umbrella is. And I thought, I bet I could do that. And so I set out for years trying to make an amazing umbrella. I've taken thousands of apart in my apartment, and I've come up with this. So I believe it's awesome. And so we've tried to put a lot of attention to detail, starting with the handles.
Yep, I can feel
it. So I wanted to make a handle that feels good universally in everybody's hand. Lisa,
feel that. Doesn't that feel nice on your hand?
This is awesome.
Like real grip?
So that's the one thing. Obviously, everybody hates the wind. Griff is outside right now with the wind machine. So the biggest thing is you want your umbrella to stay in the wind. And that's the biggest problem that all of us
Any
have.
umbrella I've ever owned couldn't take 10 miles an hour, let alone what's happening right there.
Yeah, and you know, at some point, anything is going to break. Houses fall apart, trees fall down, and whatever. But yeah, so we've made that. Griff, I want you to come back inside because I've got something for you. So that's one thing. The other problem is water. So you know your umbrella gets super
You get inside
soggy.
and you try to shake it off, and it makes your house all wet.
Or it gets on you as well.
Get in on that.
Yeah.
Look at that. He was showing me before we did the segment.
Yeah, so the water repels right off of it.